Oh, good morning, folks. Good morning. Uh, Apologies for not staying up with you. I've just been too busy with my own stuff, stressing way too much. Sleep's been pretty good, been nice and cool. Uh, Getting ready to make a leap here. A few leaps. I haven't planned what I was going to say. I've had so many things I wanted to get on here and record and tell you about. Look, folks, as far as I can tell, this is the end run, and they're going to go slow. They're going to go slow because they're afraid if they wake us up too quickly, that we will just take them on and wipe them out. I'm not kidding about that. In case you're wondering, when I was a little boy, my grandmother was college educated way back when. Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts, 1917. And by the time I came around, she stopped talking about what she had been talking about previously because she knew too much. I hope I take after her a little bit in that way. I loved talking with her, but she never opened up fully and told me the stuff that she knew. I guess by the time I come around, and I was hanging out with her when, I'm going to just take a guess that she was probably close to 60, in her 50s. She explained the basic principles of psychology to me way before the colleges and the universities did. She told me several things, one thing which I think you need to know, and she told me this in a way that I would remember it. The seventh plank of the New Deal was the law of the land for 7 years, until the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. Now, what was that wonderful seventh plank that the Democrats gave us? It was illegal for a married woman to work outside the home unless her husband was certified by a medical doctor as infirmed. Only then could she work. And my grandmother was very upset. She was highly educated. She was working as a teacher, and she had to give up her job in order that a man could get it, in order that the Democrats could bolster the economy. She was very upset about that, and I can understand why to a very large extent. And when I asked her about things, I remember when I was around 11, 12, 13, she would walk out of the room quite often, muttering to me, muttering out loud, I guess, even to anybody, it's the bankers, it's the bankers. Now, mind you, she's telling me this, and it probably was about, I don't even think it was early 1960s when she's telling me this. She was a very smart woman. She was one of 3 girls, 3 daughters. The father believed in education, and he sent all 3 of them to Mount Holyoke College, and they were college educated. I remember my Aunt Carolyn was one of those. I think she became a nurse, actually. What I want to tell you is that these guys aren't going to let up. This pressure is going to stay on us. There will be no return to normal. They're not going to allow it. Klaus Anal Schwab and his family have determined that it's time to take us down. Now, there was a great man named Tex Mars in Texas. He considered himself a pastor, but he also wrote some books as well. And I tried to meet the gentleman way back. Well, it wasn't that long ago, but not quite 10 years ago. But I tried to meet him, and I made arrangements to travel over there. And for some reason, he refused to meet with me. I got to his office outside of Austin. I had driven probably 1,500 miles. And it was at the end of a cul-de-sac. It was a beautiful house, nice grounds. And there were about 3 staff people working in his office, and they apologized upon his behalf because Tex was trying to finish up 2 books and he didn't have time to meet. And I was extremely disappointed, but he was directed, let him have some books, give him better prices and all that. So that's when I bought this book, Final Judgment by Michael Collins Piper. I got a good version of it, with probably the last version with all of that stuff put together. Got it for $50. Wish I'd have bought a second one. Just didn't want to feel too greedy because they usually went for $100. And then I picked up some other books, and one was called The Learned Elders of Zion. I don't know if I've got that title exactly right. I haven't seen the book in a while. I still have it. And why I'm bringing that up to you is because there's an accounting in there of a rabbi who was being buried and eulogized in 1868. Now, this is by memory. I'm hoping that my circumstances might change and I may be able to have access to these books and be better organized, just be able to grab a book and point it out and show you exactly. Because I don't remember exactly what was said, what was written, and sometimes I get a little distortion of it. I might make a mistake with something simple like a conjunction or a preposition, and that just throws, or an article. Little words that throw off the entire meaning are very important. And I tend to go too deep. I tend to, and my previous supervisor would say, milk the data. I tend to take things a little too far, is what some people would say. And my thinking, I do step out there a bit. I admit that. I'm not telling you have to believe me or believe what I believe. And there's quite often I'm expressing concepts that I don't believe, that I think they merit discussion. And we need that open discussion in order to have flexibility in our minds. And by having flexibility, we stay young and we adapt. And we can form better action plans. It all comes down to action plans, behavior. Because when we take action, we learn from it. Either we're doing the right thing, or maybe we're doing the wrong thing, or we learn how better to do something. Then we correct ourselves. So this war in Ukraine is going to drag out for a long time because the bankers want it that way. The Congress, the Senate, Mitch McConnell, the president, they don't run the show. They just reaffirmed that guy Powell, Fed Reserve Chairman. He runs the show. They're the ones calling the shots. They won't say much publicly, but they're the ones running this country. It's not our country anymore. They illegally occupy us. We gave them that monopoly in 1913. We did a lot of bad things in 1913. The Anti-Defamation League, B'nai B'rith, started in 1913. The Federal Bureau of Investigations started under a little bit of a different name in 1913. All 3 of these have been used against us, and if you think the FBI is there to maintain law and order, look at what they're doing. They're not worth the powder to blow them to hell, as my mother would say. I think that we're in trouble. And the sooner that we recognize that, the better. Now, a return to self-rule would be magnificent, but they're not going to allow it without a fight. And if we do fight, they're going to spray us like bugs. They already spray us anyway. And they can wipe us out very easily. They've got plenty of weapons. Most of them are silent. Most of them are so secret, so silent, so they're not in your face at all, so you won't recognize it when you've been hit with a bioweapon or with one of their radiation weapons, one of their light inventions or sounds. You just won't know it. You'll just not feel well. These guys have certain rules that they play by. Guidelines maybe is better. I'm not inside, so I don't know how they do this exactly. But it appears as though they have to announce what they're going to do to the victim before they do it. And they put it right in your faces. The problem is you don't recognize it. And because they fulfilled this aspect of this rule of the game, if you will, then they believe they have complete license to do it against you, to do it to you. There's some things that crossed my mind which were rather profound that I thought I should share. I guess the number one thing right now is that this war in the Ukraine is already over. It's been over for a while. It was determined in the first 2 weeks who the victor was going to be. This bullshit out of the United States Senate with Mitch McConnell, the turtle, claiming that everyone agrees the most important thing is the war in the Ukraine. Mitch McConnell, you're a piece of shit. You know, you should not be in that office. You're playing us, and you think we're dumb, and you are a treasonous traitor, rat bastard. We need a constitutional Senate. And what is the constitutional Senate? The senators are not directly elected. The senators represent the state governments and come from among the legislators to each state government, and they're subject to instant recall. If we did that, we would get rid of these professional politicians in the Senate, and the states would have proper representation, since it was the states that authorized, were signatories to the Constitution. Then we would begin to have a republic. We won't begin to have a republic until we get rid of that direct election of senators. If my history is right, that occurred in about, I want to say 1933, but it was before then. The Congress wanted to make a deal. They wanted to get paid. They were getting a simple per diem. They wanted to get paid with benefits and retirements, and the senators wanted to be lifetime. They wanted to be appointed basically by being elected by the people rather than representing the state governments. So that's the first structural flaw, if you will. That's a structural failure that killed the republic in particular. There's lots of other things I can point to that need to be corrected, but that one's got to happen real fast. I don't see how you get it to happen. I would love to send all of these congressmen home, and the congresswomen. Just send them packing and tell the states, elect new congressmen, new congresswomen, and we're not going to pay them a salary anymore. It's a volunteer position. You get paid a simple per diem. You get for a full day served, no votes missed. And on top of that, all you're getting is the cost of lodging and 3 hots and a cot. So what? I think I could do quite well on $300 a day, but maybe not in Washington, D.C. I mean, maybe it'd have to be as much as $500 a day. But that's it. That's what they get. No pensions, no retirements, no medical benefits. They're tossed in with the rest of us with this Obama crap care. Obama careless crap. The Affordable Care Act. Ran into another woman who had the COVID. It was her first day at work, and she was pretty shaky. And I told her, you need to be at home resting. And she had similar symptoms as I had. Namely, her diaphragm was a problem, and she had problems breathing. So that's symptomatic of not a virus, folks. It's symptomatic of a freaking neurotoxin, of poison. So I believe that's what's going on. We can't get an open dialogue. Big tech, if you will, or corporations are all in this together with the government. They're all set against us. Not only are all professions turned against the laity, but so are the corporations. And in case you're wondering, they're all being run from Rome. They're all created underneath the canon law, basically, the Vatican. So that's how they did this legal stuff to us. The Vatican, canon law. That's what I don't like about you Catholics very much, is that you seem to think you're better than anybody else. Well, you got some of the stinkiest, you know what, out there. Look at that Pope. Look at the symbolism on his robes. Read the history about the popes. Read the history about the Catholic Church. The people seem to be fine. I mean, very upstanding. Catholic education was a better education. That's for sure. But y'all got problems just like the rest of us. The Russian people are upset with Vladimir Putin, and I know some of you are going to cheer that and think, wow, it's great. Yes, 85% of the Russian people are upset with Putin and say he hasn't been hard enough. They want this war over. They don't want it dragging out either. But Putin's very disciplined. This has all been planned. He's going to win no matter what. And the Russian people recognize this as an existential threat. It's not just to go in there and take care of the Ukraine. They know that we have placed our battle stations, if you will, right on their borders, pretty much. We've got bio labs there, all kinds of stuff going on underground. And they really had to act. They didn't have any choice because, you know, like we said, somebody said, what's the Russians doing having their nation so close to our military outposts? Well, we weren't being friendly. We certainly weren't playing nice. And the Ukraine is nothing but a place to launder money that goes back to our politicians. Look at how much money the politicians are throwing at it. And they know, and the bankers know, all the weapon systems that we try to send in there get blown up. They get tracked at the least and then blown up when they arrive at the other depot where the other weapons are at. There's no winning for the United States in the Ukraine. Russia is going to take all of the coastal line pretty much around the Black Sea. They're going to take all the wheat fields, and they're going to leave that central and northern area. And then the Poles have had their eye on the western part of the Ukraine for a long time. They've got an old claim to that territory. They're going to go in after it. I hope the Poles do that pretty soon, because it would just prove the point that NATO has been the aggressor in this whole thing. All of those people that are in the east part of the Ukraine and along the coast there, they're pretty much all Russian speakers. They're pretty much all Russians. They think like Russians. They've got Russian culture. I think what happened in Ukraine is terrible, but the only ones to blame on it are the United States. Barack Obama in particular. We went in there and meddled. You need to understand something else. All of the big pharma, all of the pharmaceutical industries have their corporate headquarters in Kiev, which is the proper way to pronounce the darn city. They have their headquarters in Kiev. And there's really a tremendous, powerful history behind that land and behind the pharmaceutical industry and where that comes from. It's all based on principles of toxicity and disabling. And apparently, we seem to be identifying the Jews as being the culprits. Well, they certainly are involved. But you need to understand that there's two different groups of Jews. If you want the evidence for that, another book in storage is Edwin Black's book, The Transfer Agreement. When you read that, you will understand that there was a good group and there was a bad group. And the bad group prevailed. How did they prevail? They murdered the good group. That's pretty bad. You know, you prevail not because you have a better dialogue and the people want you representing them and want your philosophy, but you prevail because you murder the leaders of the other group, and then you sneak in and make a deal with Adolf. Yeah, I don't dare say his last name. They don't like it on this format. Anyway, Adolf may rightly be called the father of modern Israel. So I like smiling on that one, and y'all ought to suck that one down and realize that if it wasn't for him forming an alliance for the transfer agreement with the bad figs, modern Israel wouldn't have occurred. I don't believe half the stories about that man. There's no basis for them. He had plenty of members of the tribe in his elite forces and his officers. You know, he wasn't as prejudiced as what they made him out to be. And that group wasn't the victim as much as they've made themselves out to be. That's a manipulative skew, if you will, so they can take over the world. How do they do that? They make you and me feel guilty because they are victims. And now we have to cater to them in their every goddamn need. By the way, the number 6 million came up way before World War I. Came up in the previous century as far as I can remember. There's videos on YouTube about that. It was in newspapers and everywhere. 6 million was a famous number from the Kabbalah, from that mystical stuff. And I'm not talking magical mystery tour. I'm talking about that diabolical Kabbalah that came out of Babylon. You see, folks, there was nothing wrong with the Jews until they went into captivity in Babylon because they didn't come out the same. So you had all those people in the southern part of Judah hauled out by the Babylonians, generally speaking, 3 different invasions. One earlier one that overlapped with the Assyrians, so some got taken to the north, but most ended up in Babylon. And while in Babylon, they adopted this new religion. And that's when their traditions began. The Babylonian Talmud is not the Torah of the Bible. The Torah is the first 5 books that we have. If you bothered to read it, you would realize that the Israelites had a patriarchy going. And what do modern Jews have? It's kind of a matriarchy, if you will. The lineage follows the mother. And what did the Edomites have? Esau, they had that pretty much. Their culture was pretty twisted. The Israelite tradition or order from Yahweh was you couldn't have somebody who wasn't a brother over you. But Esau's descendants at Mount Seir had the exact opposite, spelled with an A, P-P-O-S-I-T-E. Had the exact opposite view that they didn't trust each other. And as a result, their law was they couldn't have one of their brothers over them. It had to be an outsider. So they grab up an outsider and make a deal with him and make him their king. And they trusted the outsider. They couldn't trust each other. What is that? Why is that? Anyway, I'm going to guess about 700 A.D., a group of Edomites, descendants of Esau, read about the bowl of red porridge he sold his inheritance for. Read about the fact that he married 2 women of the land, 2 Canaanite women. He took one Canaanite woman to wife, and when he saw how much it upset his parents, that'd be Isaac and Rebekah, he took a second Canaanite woman to wife. Kind of rubbed their noses in the shit. And then after that, after he had violated the direct edict given by Yahweh on several occasions, that wasn't advice, that was an order. He was basically excommunicated. He was kicked out of the family. And when he realized what he had done, what a mistake he had made, he cried tears of repentance that were not acceptable. And you people say God is pure love. Well, read the Bible. You'll see Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. That's what Yahweh says. You know, am I supposed to Who am I? I just take him at his word on that. So Esau, in tears, repented, and then he took a wife from the daughters of Ishmael, which apparently were one of our own kind, one of his own kind, and that was perfectly acceptable. It was perfect. But it was too late. He had already taken 2 Canaanite women to wife, and here's this third woman, and he had already violated the direct edict given by Yahweh rather. I think he said that about 5 times. Do not take the daughters of the land for wives for your sons, and do not give your daughters to the people of the land to be wives. And there was good reason for that. It wasn't just a simple miscegenation. You know, the people of the land had fallen angelic DNA in them, fallen angel seed in them. They were a hybrid. They were a mix, and God didn't want them part of his family. And so if you married those people, you were outside of his family. That's the basic concept you need to understand there. I got to go. I think I've given you enough. We need to stop this central federal government as fast as we can. They have created the baby formula shortage by shipping it all down to the border to give to the foreigners. Now, what does the Bible say about people who fail to take care of their own? If you fail to take care of your own, you're cursed, is what the Bible says. Go read it, get the exact passage and language. It's in there. I urge you to do whatever you can to take power away from this federal government. Don't participate in anything that they're trying to dictate to the rest of us. We need to go back to states' rule. We need to go back to self-rule. And for you people out there who think, oh, they're not going to take away our guns. No, they're not going to take away your guns because they want you to fight. They want you to fight each other. They want you to fight them so they can call out their military. Okay, they want us to fight. That's what they're after. That's what they've been pushing for. And in case you're wondering, your famous President Donald Trump is in on that too. He's part of the group to divide America, to set us about at each other's throats. I know you don't believe me. You think I'm a nut. That's okay. There's a video out there, and I'll provide the link, and I will comment about that video at some point, and then I will enlighten you as to what the man is saying, exactly what he means, as best I can. And I'm going to take it out there, folks. I'm going to explain to you what the serpent is that's coiled around the earth. It's symbolism for an incredibly powerful destructive force waiting for us. It gets called into play every so many thousand years. I would imagine on the order of 12,000 to 25,000 years, maybe 125,000 years, this thing gets called into play, and when it awakens, it's pretty bad for us people on the land. They've got us divided. As Trump said himself, never before has America been so divided. And he was very pompous in delivering that statement. He relished that statement. Yeah, I know I got some of you on edge because you're thinking I don't support Trump. Look, I don't give a damn about the man. But would I vote for him? I vote for what he stood for, what he acted he stood for, what he pretended. I'd vote for that all day long. That's probably the best we're going to get. I'd rather pick a president out of the old yellow pages or white pages of the phone book if I could find one. Just open it up and point at a person and say, fine, that's president. We'd get a better person in the White House than what we have today, that's for sure. They're not going to give us any relief. They're going to continue to destroy energy production. Energy is going to go way up. About the only way this is going to change is if people take over their counties and not let anyone else in. In other words, Go read Thomas Jefferson's recommendations for how to restore the republic once lost. And then look at the history of Jones County in Mississippi. Now, what their practices were, we don't want to follow, but they wouldn't let anybody in. They wouldn't let the North or the South in, and they weren't destroyed like other places. They maintained some prosperity. And I disagree with people that say the Civil War was fought over slavery. No, I think you want it to be fought over slavery because you think you're that important. Well, I don't think so. Got news for you. It was fought over money, of all the stupid things. It was fomented by the Rothschilds. And by the way, this market, that's the way it's coming down. I watched Gregory Mannarino. He's on top of it. He showed us a chart with 3 different lines, and he didn't explain it fully, but those are lines which I believe he's calculated as breaking points, landing points. That's once we cross that line, we go further down. So he thinks that they're going to bottom out at one of these lines, and then it's going to take off and build. He could be right. I hope he's right. But my concern is they might just leave us at that level for a while and then drop us down another level. You got to remember there was a family called Bauer that took on the name Rothschild. And I believe his name was Nathaniel Rothschild, Nathan Rothschild. Not sure about his first name, but it was the father of the 4 or 5 boys, Rothschild boys, that went off and formed banks in each one of the continents, basically. I guess you had one boy went to London, one went to Paris, one went to Germany. I don't know where the other one. So you had France, Great Britain, Germany. I think one went to Italy. But they continued this dynasty their father had started. And his famous words on his deathbed were supposedly this: remember, my sons, the Gentiles get nothing. Well, I don't like being called a Gentile. I think that's a pretty racist term. How about you? All right, I'm leaving this one as it is. I got to get on. Bye-bye.